Good evening, good evening, everyone. Tonight is a bonus class um, on some information that I hope and pray that you find useful um, tonight. And also, I want to encourage our ministers, pastors, um, and administrators, church administrators to um, purchase a book called The Star Book for Ministers. In this book, it's a guide, a reference guide for especially ministers and pastors. It has templates on how you should conduct weddings, funerals, christenings. It gives you um, a lot of information. It gives you the order of service, scriptures that go along with. It has information about church administration, stewardship, and again, in the back, it has blank forms that you, as an administrator, can use for your church or institution in developing your own, designing your own church's forms. Letters, it has letters of dismission when someone wants to move their membership. It has um, a template for licensing someone to preach or a certificate of ordination. So it's a handy little book that um, can help you along the way. We're going to start in chapter 10 on page 200. And in that first paragraph, it says special congregational events put the minister's management skills, especially planning skills, on public display. These special events are common, high-profile happenings. The three most common demanding ones are weddings, funerals, and revivals or renewal events. Um, we're going down to the bottom of the page, guiding premarital counseling. Ministers often find premarital counseling unfulfilling. They feel frustrated because engaged couples usually want a ceremony, but not the counseling. But this is one part of you putting your name on this piece of paper saying, you know, that you're marrying them. They should be committed to um, coming to counseling, however many sessions that you think is necessary, that you have developed, this type of thing. Um, so this is something that a lot of preachers require. On the top of page 201, the minister provides the setting, the questions, an objective listening ear, and some coaching in communications and conflict management processes. The couple's response with frank answers and direct conversation. Um, Most importantly, a relationship is built for later, more substantial communications. So you're building a rapport with them to help them learn to talk with each other and talk with you. They want to express themselves in a manner that is beneficial for both of them. And you, as a minister, would give them things to think about, some things that they need to consider, letting them know that it's not just about them, but about um, the two being one. Being administrator, church administration, sometimes you're asked to take notes. You are the one that will get the forms for them and make sure you're assisting the pastor or whoever's doing the ceremony by making sure the proper information, the documentation is taken care of. Okay, on page 203, at the top of the page says, according to the justice of the peace, the only valid reason for halting a wedding is when the marriage uh, won't be legal. While the law related to marriages may vary somewhat from state to state, several issues commonly constitute illegal marriages, and they are if either the bride or the groom has a prior undissolved marriage, if the parties are related to each other in a manner prohibiting marriage in that state. That can get tricky because some states say cousins or whatever. Um, Another one is if either of the parties are underage. That's another one that can be tricky in some states. If either of the parties are judged to be incompetent or insane, if either party is involuntarily intoxicated or drugged. So these are the reasons why um, you cannot perform the marriage. Um, After the ceremony, um, most of the time it's the groom who makes sure the pastor is there to everybody signs the proper place. And I would suggest, and what we have done is keep a log of a ledger of people who want to pastor to perform the weddings, and um they are signed, and we have like a contract that they sign saying that they will come to premarital counseling and go through the process, and then they make sure that uh all the forms are taken care of, and uh everyone signs in the right place. That can be depending on the state and where you're from. Some forms are simple, and some of them can have here, jump around where people have to sign, and the legal names, that type of thing. So you have to be careful. And as a church administrator, you're going through this information sometimes after the fact, that because the pastor, the minister signs and gives too. And I have witnessed where they were all swept up in the ceremony, and the groom forgot to get the pastor to sign off, and they left out, and it was months later that they were, oh my God, we forgot to. And then they had to come back. And some states, you have to go back to the courthouse after 30 days and get another one. They're going to charge you a fee and that type of thing. So had to come back. And, the pastor's done several. So did he do, unless it really um, stuck out in his mind, we go back to the ledger book and say, okay, yeah, this date is what's, because you got to make sure the dates are correct, because otherwise they're not legally married. Okay, on page 204, a funeral is both a family ceremony and a community event. In the first place, funerals demonstrate the strength of our credit networks. Our families and friends rally around us. Our sense of solidarity with them supports us. Second, funerals provide official farewells. This can be a painful situation, and some people need closure. Um, as a minister, you should have some counseling skills, because you will see a lot of things. As a church administrator, um, you'll be again assisting the pastor in making sure the proper information is taken care of. All right. And I'll add to that, when performing a funeral, the funeral director will be the one that will assist you while at the grave site with positioning the minister at the head of the casket. So as the minister, you don't have to worry about the positioning of. My understanding and my experience is that the funeral director will let you stand here. You stand here, so you're at the head of the casket. And they will assist you in, um, even when it's a committal at either the funeral home or wherever you're having the funeral service at, it will um they will help you with the committal part of the ceremony. And this little book has the information that you would need in it to make it go kind of seamlessly. Okay. Um, Toward the bottom of 204 under minister's role in funeral planning, with regard to local customs and congregational policies regarding funeral services, you should be knowledgeable and sensitive. Even if you don't agree with some of the customs that people have, don't choose that public funeral, that moment, to um, create a test case for your views. Don't push what you want or what you believe on the people. You're as a minister, as a pastor, performing a funeral. Your job is to talk to the living. The dead is already lived their life and their testimony. But your job is to try to encourage comfort the people that's there, and um, whatever their customs is, they want you to comfort them and to the right word to say is, I wouldn't say push what your religion on them, none of that, but to invite them for counseling, for um, um, help them understand that this is not the end, but also what they want is about the living, because the deceased is they they're not gonna no more. So don't choose that time to push your beliefs on the people. Um, do it what they asked you to do, and which is to preach that eulogy, and don't try to preach people into heaven. Um, Talk to the living. Um, so, and as a church administrator, again, a ledger is a good thing on um, helping, and especially in a bigger church, larger numbers. A good thing is to have a ledger with funeral services that the pastor has performed. Because again, sometimes paperwork need to be done, and it can be hard to remember if you do a lot of weddings or funerals. At the top of 205, additionally, you should know and practice consistently the local customs regarding any fees paid to persons who assist with funerals. Be prepared to advise about proper fees to pay the soloist, the organist, the janitor, whoever. Have some idea of what the general cost is. Um, some people don't charge anything. That's their gift and comfort in the family. Um, and then 4 paragraphs down says, with regard to military and fraternal groups, you should acquaint yourself with these groups' prescribed rituals. With the military, they have 21 gun salutes, and taps is played, and that type of thing. When conducting funeral services that may include these groups, carefully coordinate funeral services and grave side committals with their representatives. So talk with your people that they're involved with. The U.S. Department of Defense will, upon request, provide ministers with copies of their pamphlets on conducting military funerals. So you can there is information out there for you, but you have to research it and have it. And as a church administrator, um, the pastor's gonna lean on you if he's not one or she's not one to find these things out. They may say find out, so that you'll be the one getting this information for the pastor or the person doing the ceremony. On page 206, special events deserve uh, the minister's thorough efforts in planning. Special congregational events should be remembered for positive results, not for what went wrong. Planning helps special events unfold in predictable stages. So plan, and plan. Um, and then on page 207, you have a template that says funeral policies for our church. And it's just an example to go over. And on page 208, it has a blank template for special event planning. So as the church administrator, it's your job to make sure that the information um, is there for the church. It's if your church is being used or your institution is being used for this special event, the policies that you have or that the church, the institution has is made clear to the people that's requesting it. On page 209 is chapter 11, talks about church publications. And it says, to a great extent, the personality of a church is conveyed through its church publications. There is a direct relationship between how a congregation thinks and feels about its life and the content and quality of the published materials. What you put out there for the world to see is what's gonna you're gonna be known as. Um, People will be looking at, well, they had this and it was great. They provided us with this, or they tried to shove down our throat this, that, and other. So you'll be remembered for that published information. Under general considerations, it says be clear about your message. And then it has the best messages are concise, energetic, respectful. So, and it gives you those to take into consideration, making things clear, making sure it's upbeat, make sure it respects the message and the mission of the church and the people, because that's what people are going to see from that point on, from printed material. Um, the that was the first consideration. Second consideration is be clear about your target audience. If you're having something for young people with upbeat music, then sometimes having a mature audience, uh seniors, uh sometimes the loud music annoys them or messes with the hearing, that type of thing. So know who you're sending this information out to, and it gets to the right people. Follow a planned design. Four is make basic information prominent. Tell the name of the church, the address, this type basic information. The fifth thing is use good quality paper. You don't want things to look cheap. Not that you got to have, the most expensive thing out there, but you want quality for the Lord. You want things decent and in order, and you want things to look like you put an effort in and not just threw something together. The sixth thing says develop editorial skills. Um, you got to make sure that you're editing things and that you're encouraging participation of the church. So you got do those develop editorial skills. Um, Under administrative guidelines, number one says one person on the staff should be designated as coordinator of church publication. Two, develop a policy statement that describes the purpose, content, distribution, and cost for each regular publication. 3, develop a production schedule for each regular publication. 4, use a planning form as illustrated, and it gives you an illustration on the next page for each issue of the church publication. 5, follow the same planning scheme for special brochures, promotional material, and other related items. 6, develop a layout form for all regular publications. If you have a church bulletin, you want to make sure you have a basic layout form that that the publication will go by. 7, keep a file copy of every publication. You want to, that way you can know where your church is, what you have done over the years. It helps you with your meetings. You can show, especially when you're doing some things that the government wants special information. You'll be able to keep track of events that worked for the church and things that didn't. And we had this for the children and they showed up for this, but not for that. So it helps you by keeping a file of every copy. Review annually is number 8 for the effectiveness of the church publications. On page 212, ideas to enhance your publications. Design content based on your target audience. Again, space is precious. Use it wisely. And with the era of social media, that is another avenue that you can use. Number 3 says establish a news gathering system where you have people that help you get information that you want to put into the publication or let you know how it was received by the community or the congregation. Number 4, keep freshness in your publications. You want to make sure that you stay up to date about things. So it's not that, well, this is what we done. The tradition is this, and yes, tradition is good, but sometimes you have to adjust as your audience or congregation adjusts. Number 5, become acquainted with proofreading marks. Number 6, learn the vocabulary used in dealing with church publications. So you're constantly learning. Number 7, for special publications that require complicated designs, layouts, and production, the church needs professional assistance. If you're planning something big, with posters and this, that, and another, sometimes it's good to go outside of church and have things professionally printed out. Number 8, develop a form to use and learn how to write press releases. Stuff that you can put not just in the printed paper, but online, social media is the same way. Number 9, contact the local broadcast or cable station or newspaper regarding of the policies for covering news events. And this way, if you're having something for the community, you can get that information out there better. Number 10, be dependable. Number 11, secure a special manual or a secretarial handbook for your office. And number 12, proofread, proofread, proofread. Because once it's out there, is out there. Okay. And we're going to go to chapter 12 on page 218. 218 at the top says, one of the most difficult areas for congregations today is the law and its ramifications for the church. Many churches act out of ignorance, a feeling of immunity, and a substance based on the separation idea of that says the church has no dealings with the state. but you're in the state, so you have to operate within those ramifications. So church administrators, you can't say, well, I didn't know. I didn't know is not an excuse anymore because of increasingly just legal accountability among nonprofit organizations. Every minister and every church must understand the basic legal matters that apply to the works of the church. So, um, depending on where you're at, as far as the state you're in and the area that your church is in, you need to know what the law says, the zoning information, that type of thing. That's why organization is key as church administrator, because you'll have to keep those things organized and know, okay, put your hands on this for whatever things that arise. Under determining needs for legal assistance, um, a major consideration in this area will involve the ability to know when to seek legal help and the best approach to take when the situation is called for. Um, you must not just your feelings can't be in the way. It can't be in the way when it comes to church administration, the church business. Um, Under select an attorney, a church should seek a reputable, competent attorney who will be sympathetic and understanding of the special legal needs of a church. An attorney who is a member of that congregation may not be the best choice, although a Christian attorney is preferable. The last sentence that says a church should be willing to pay for the service rendered and not expect discounted or free advice. Although that a lot of attorneys do have special fees for nonprofits, you shouldn't necessarily expect, because you're going to get what you pay for a lot of times. On down on page 219 under situations requiring legal advice. Numerous and rapid changes are taking place in legal matters that may have impact on the local church. At the national level, the Internal Revenue Service continues to issue rulings that affect the church. In addition to tax code changes and tax court decisions, they make it necessary for the church to keep up with those areas that will affect its work. I know several years ago, um, there was a church that um, they did not want to hire someone that was a member of the LGBTQ community, and I'm not trying to I'm not trying to um, throw stones or anything like that, but I trying to remember it off the top of my head. But there was a church that did not want to hire someone for a leadership position, and they were sued because it was not in their church bylaws that someone from this community could not be in leadership position. So they lost that lawsuit. So it's imperative that you know what the bylaws and laws and tax codes say about that and other things, so that you can adjust accordingly. At the state level, decisions are being made concerning daycare centers and church operations that will affect those churches that have those services. At the local level, a taxation of properties owned by the church continues to be explored. So they hadn't quite got that nailed down yet, so that can change several times. Many local ordinances also affect the church in its building program and the operation of the church activities. Many of these situations will require the church to secure competent legal advice. Ignorance of the law will not be a valid excuse if the church is guilty of failing to abide by its legal responsibilities. At times, the church may be required to go to court to resolve problems, and you try to avoid it with all costs if you can, but if not, it has to be done. Um, the church must make several considerations with uh when this happens. One consideration is stewardship. What is the responsibility of the church from a stewardship standpoint? On page 220, safety. The responsibility of the church to provide adequate safety precautions is sometimes overlooked because some people just come to church. They don't think about the rug being nailed down or the bathroom having hand grab bars or that type of thing. They just come. They don't think about this thing. But just like with any public building, you have to have uh, adequate lighting and a s- an exit sign that is clear, and to see although you see a door, most people think that's the exit. Don't necessarily have to be, because the way people are using buildings now, it does not have to be like you know what older traditional churches was. They're using warehouses and things, so you got to have those signs, and you got to have grab bars in case someone who has mobility issues, they can come in and they can they're safe. So you have safety issues. Fraud is the third thing. And in the case of a company that was demonstrated outright fraud, then that case may have to be settled in court. And then the fourth thing says public relations. Going to court should always be the last resort, as I said, because sometimes it can cause embarrassing um, uh, outlook or public image of the church. Um, Under that, the doctrine of charitable immunity no longer protects churches from lawsuits. So these are things that have changed. Under the role of trustees, the work of trustees in the church will vary according to the structure, depending on the size of the church, that type of thing, the operations of the church. In most instances, they will be the official group for signing papers and otherwise responsible for the church in legal matters. They will act as an agent of the church in transacting business, and they are the ones most of the time that goes to court. There is sometimes when the pastor is chosen to go to court to represent the church. Under resolving grievances on page 221, written procedures for employment or employee grievances should include the following guidelines and be included in the church's policy manual. The immediate supervisor should be the first person involved when an employee has a problem. That's number one. Number two, a written record should be made of the grievance and the attempt to deal with it. Number three, if the difficulty cannot be dealt with at this level, then the next level of supervision should be involved. And four, all supervisors cannot develop the supervisors cannot develop a satisfactory solution, the matter should go to a committee. And with that, it's the chain of command, is what we called it in the military. Your immediate supervisor, and then if that doesn't get resolved, go to the next level. So the chain of the command. You don't automatically go to the top. because they're gonna send you back down to your immediate supervisor. So you should have these grievances and these things in the church's policy manual. It should be written, because once it's written and with the employee information, they have uh, a time that they can read over, and most of the time you give them a copy of when they are employed, and they can't say, well, I didn't know, because you have it. Under using legal help in specific areas, that first paragraph, the last sentence says, issues must be dealt with and legal help will be necessary in many areas. And it gives you, the first one is incorporation. Uh, the effect of incorporation is to create a legal entity that the law recognizes for purposes of holding title of real estate, executing contracts, and performing all functions necessary in conducting the civil affairs of the church. Corporations offer several other uh, advantages, and they are listed in the bullet points below. And corporations allow the church to hold property in its own name. It restricts the duplication of the church's name. It gives the church continued life. It protects the creditors. It offers the church tax benefits in some states. It helps the church obtain multi-risk insurance. On the top of 222, it gives the church greater opportunity to obtain loans. It makes the church a separate legal entity. It protects the church members and trustees. The second thing that is a necessary area is liability. A church may be called upon to provide compensation for anyone, members, visitors, employees, and others outside of the church when there is negligence resulting in the loss or of damage. So if someone trips and falls, that type of thing. If God forbid there's bee stings or spiders or whatever in the church, and people sue you for just about anything. So you have to be careful these days. The third thing is taxation. And under that, it says federal tax. The church is usually automatically exempt from federal taxes because it's a church. And it helps if you have a relationship with a denominational body. It helps in the organization defined in the section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. So if you have your 501c3, that helps. The Internal Revenue Services use several characteristics to determine if a church qualifies for exemptions, and it gives you the bulletins. A legal existence, it has a formal code of doctrine, a membership not associated with another church, an established place to worship, a regular religious service or services, an ordained minister, and a school for training ministers. All right, so that was number one. Number two, under taxation, is state taxes. In many states, churches are exempt from paying state taxes, sales taxes, or on items purchased for the church. A tax exempt number is required in some states. So it's important to know what your state is requiring. So church administration, that is your job to make sure you have this information. The third thing, local taxes. Um, there are some varies of in that taxation in the local on the local levels. Local sales taxes and local property taxes are levied against churches in some communities. So you have to be careful about what's going on in your area, federal, state, and local area. Number four, under employment taxes, a church is responsible for any other employer, any of their employees, excuse me, to withhold taxes from the employees' wages. So with that, you hold it and you'll send that in, just like with any business. So like any other employer, they have to withhold that and pay those taxes. Um, the exemption to all employees, exception, excuse me, to all employees applies to the ordained ministers. You have to pay taxes on any love offering that you get, that type of thing, the salary that the minister, whoever the pastor is, if you get some an offering of any kind for preaching or performing the services, and you'll file it under self-employment. Sometimes um churches can withhold that those taxes for the minister, the pastor, whoever, and at the end of that quarter, or depending on if you're doing it quarterly or yearly, send that money in. Um, at the bottom of 224, a newly ordained minister within the second year of ordination may file a request for an exemption for Social Security coverage on religious principles prohibiting acceptance of Social Security benefits for services as a minister. So you won't get that those benefits. That was four. Number five, unrelated business income tax, which can be related to renting out parking spaces. If your building is in a heavy populated area that has a lot of buildings around it, you can rent your parking lot out, that type of thing. So you'll have to pay taxes on that. You on number six, federal excise tax. And then seven is unemployment tax. So there are some special situations there. Under employment practices, a church should establish policies related to the employment of personnel to ensure consistency in hiring practice. Again, that would fall under where the church that I had told you about, they did not want to employ people from that certain uh, group of people. But it must be in your bylaws. So consistency is key. A church may want to employ only church members, but that can that should be a fair and consistent policy and not an excuse used only when you don't want to hire somebody. So you have to be careful about that. On page 229, under conclusion, in many circumstances in the life and the work of a church, legal advice is necessary. The wise church will secure an attorney and seek help when it's needed. The cost involved may be well worth the damages and court costs avoided or the public image preserved if proper legal procedures are followed. Church leaders should use their position to ensure that the church is doing all it can to conduct its business in a legal and ethical manner. Amen. Amen. I do hope and pray that this will help some of the pastors, the churches that are existing and new ones that are to come. And the church administrators, don't be scared to dive in and make sure that the information organized and planned, and this you can do it. You have the information and the key. You can do this as long as you are wanting to continue to learn about your craft. As with any craft, you'll do well. And we will talk with you and see you again on Thursday night. Have a great evening.